in your vision. That's what's coming across. Understanding that it does not have to work out a certain way in order for, or it doesn't have to happen a certain way in order for things to work out. There's almost like this a superstitious aspect about the situation that you were asking about that feels like, whoo, like I have to do it this way, I have to do it that way, trying to almost control the ability to alter the fate of things. If I do this, if I do that, if I, it sometimes can feel a little OCD-ish, but it really is more of a kind of a superficial aspect. We're trying to figure out how to manipulate how things are going to turn out, and really don't focus on that part. Don't be, like, don't be upset at yourself for surviving, because there's like this energy surrounding you of feeling bad for yourself when it comes to this, of doing your best of this particular situation. So don't feel like don't get down on yourself for surviving it. And surviving means you have to be resourceful. Surviving means you have to find clarity in the information that you're receiving. Surviving means that you need to protect your peace. Surviving means that you get very clear on the things that you need to cut out of your life and the things that should stay in your life. Surviving can be a blessing once you get to the other side. It is not a blessing when you are going through it, but it shows you how to tear apart, how to remove the excess in your life that is unnecessary. Excess ways of thinking, excess ways of feeling, of being, of looking, of showing, all of those things. So being able to make peace with this particular situation is important, but it's showing a survival story. It is showing someone who had to reinvent themselves, had to realize themselves, had to relook at this exactly in a different light. You may have thought that it was going to turn out differently. And, maybe in another situation it could have, but it turned out the way that it was going to turn out based off of the momentum of how the energy was flowing for this particular situation. And that momentum is really based off of how you feel and the actions you take based off of your feelings. So you can do anything. You could take any action to do anything, regardless of how you feel. But that's just not how humans are. We're not like that. If we don't like something, we tend not to do it. If we really like something, we tend to do something. If we don't want to do something, we'll make excuses and we'll procrastinate. If we want to do something, there is no mountain that is too high to climb to get to where you want to go if you really want to do something. So this momentous energy can feel like bad luck, but it's not that. It is just the perpetuation of the different actions that you have taken over maybe the last 4 years for this particular situation. Now, can you change it? Yes. Nothing is really set in stone. For example, when you're looking at a predictive reading, you're trying to understand, will this work? Will this relationship work? Will I get this job? Will I do this? Will I do that? And the closer that you get to it, it becomes more clear. The reason being is that we all have free will and we all have momentum. So if someone is not doing well and they continue to choose to perpetually have that energy for a long period of their life, it becomes clear how certain things will pan out. If people make changes, and they can at any moment make a change, the way that they feel, the way that they think, how they look at things, becoming more clear, letting things go. If they make a change, then they change the outcome, they change the event. So nothing is set in stone. But you are able to see that something will come to be if that momentum is going. And sometimes people are so scattered in their emotions and so scattered in their feelings that it's really hard for them to even be very clear on where's this going. They so over here and over there that when they really try to sit down and be like, okay, is this going to work out, or is this going, they can't see. Because for us, when we have all of this information just coming and coming and coming and coming to us, we get overwhelmed. It becomes too much for us. So we just try to do things to soothe us. Let me give you an example. An example of this could be somebody is giving you hot and cold energy, hot and cold energy. Are they really your friend? Or are they not your friend? Do they really like you? Do they not like you? Is it this or is it not that? Hot and cold and hot and cold and hot and cold. So what we do is we do things to soothe ourselves. So when they maybe do something nice, we might be like, okay, let's jump at this. When they do something that is not nice, we might be like, okay, we want to, take a step back. But over time, that hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold, they create a situation to lower the bar to be around you. And you got to be very careful on who you decide to be around you. To drill that point in further, when I say lower the bar, it means they have emotionally exhausted you to the point that whenever they do a little bit something nice, okay, a little bit something cool, it's easy for you to be like, oh, okay, yeah. But say they were just regular, right? Nothing good, nothing bad. And they did that little thing, you wouldn't really care. The bar is much higher. So don't confuse, because all this information is coming at you, that this, particular situation and this person that they're going to get better, they're not going to see things clearly. You're being given an opportunity, you're being given an option to see things clearly. And the choice is to let certain patterns go. How you deal with situations, how you deal with circumstances, how you deal with people. But it's really how you're dealing with your emotions. That's the main thing that continues to come across over here. How you're dealing with your emotions. And that's what you asked. You asked about that. But we don't think a lot of times that our emotions are like that important. We might say like, oh, I feel this way, and this is what I did. But our feelings shape everything we do. Our feelings are so enmeshed in our momentum to make things happen. We may not even realize that maybe we actually do like this thing that we think we hate, but we're so used to hating it that we don't know how to push past that feeling, take the action, and go in that direction. Maybe we're actually open to these people, this area, this group, this, that. But we're so used to, nope, don't want that, that's not blah, 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 that we can't even see it. You don't want to be chained to how you used to feel, how you used to be, how you used to believe. You don't want to be stuck in the fears of your past, because these little situations now that are triggering you, this little thing or that little thing, they come from something deeper. And you can sit down and you can sit and reflect on that stuff if you want to, or you can understand that you went through things, you're getting to the other side, and just because you felt that as the norm for you doesn't mean that has to be the norm for your future. That fear, that information, that dealing with people who are just topsy-turvy. No. You can feel it. Like when you first meet somebody, you feel it. You're like, okay, I feel the vibe of this person. And depending on how traumatizing life has been to you emotionally, it might heighten your interactions with that person. The thing about it, though, is trust that initial feeling, because sometimes it can be really tough to be around a certain person, not even because they're bad, but because they might show a light in them that shows a light in you. And it's making you have to let go of maybe some limiting beliefs to step up. That person shouldn't be pushing in any kind of way. You need to do this, you need to do it. No, not that at all. Just a person who is calm, not overthinking, comfortable in themselves. And if you feel like you've been put in situations where you have to be performative, where you have to wear a mask, where you have to live up to other people's expectations constantly, relationships, friendships, a family, da 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 da, when you meet this person, their energy might be confusing and off putting because it's showing how powerful it is. And it's giving you an opportunity to walk in your power for that. Now, on the other hand, you also will meet people who are completely draining. You know, their energy is off. And the way that you can tell those people apart, the way that you can tell the difference between those two is that when you're around one person, the person who's like, they're in their power, they're, comfortable in themselves, do they need to feed off of other people? I'm gonna let that sink in for you. Do they need to feed off of other people? The other example of those people who show up and they can look similar, confident, this, that, da, 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 but they typically have to feed off of other people. They're typically more controlling. They're typically more scattered. They're typically more hot and cold. They're typically more codependent. They typically need to anchor on people. So when you first meet someone, you need to learn the discernment, because that feeling that you feel, it might, when we look at ourselves as a species, yeah, we're great and we're evolved, but some of our internal instincts are very prehistoric. So that feeling that you feel could be similar for both of those two examples, but you have to understand the discernment by calming the emotions of which one is right. And those people that feed off of you, they'll keep you kind of like up and down and topsy-turvy and all this information just throwing at you and just hot and cold and giving you less and make you think that it's more, so that you don't have that time. A lot of times those people also will not leave you alone, meaning they have to continue to check in with you, to check in with you, to check in with you, so that they know that they still have that control over you. This happens actually a lot in friendship groups, and it's so like covert, because at first, when the friendship is very superficial, nothing is really anchoring anybody, and people are free to go. But as time progresses in those kinds of socialized situations, people will start to play out to who they are, whether they are comfortable in themselves or they are not comfortable in themselves. Sometimes when people are not comfortable in themselves, they might be quiet, reserved, stick to themselves, maybe don't want to do much. Sometimes when people are not confident in themselves, they're bossy, they're controlling, they want to control how other people do, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes when people are confident in themselves, they're quiet, they're reserved, they're calm, they don't need to, do much. Sometimes when people are confident in themselves, they're open, they're joyful, they're extroverted. So when you meet these people in these situations or groups like that, you might think on a superficial level when you first meet people, oh, what I'm seeing is this. But over time, you'll see that some will be this and some will be that, and understanding that discernment. And then when you get in those groups, it's kind of hard to take yourself out of it, because it becomes this weird group dynamic. But the one thing that you need to do is you just need to be authentic in yourself. If you approach any of this situation, dealing with this person that you asked about, like if you approach that situation with, I'm gonna be myself, take it or leave it, and I'm gonna do no harm, people won't be able, like the ones that I was talking about, they will not be able to feed off of you. They just won't. But also, they might actually be able to have a connection with you because they might be feeding off of somebody else, or they learn in that moment, I cannot deal with you in that kind of way. Also, for those people who are more confident, just kind of good in themselves and, things like that, it'll be easy to be around. So you might notice those dynamics in certain friendship groups, but you become immune to it, or you have you become immune to it, the resistance from it, because you don't have to play into it. A part of it wants you to play in. That's how this stuff works. But you can't. You have to really outsmart it. And you have to be very just straightforward in what you say. This kind of person, to me, that could be an indication here is like an over-explainer, or if you've ever felt like you need to over-explain something. So if you're in that kind of situation where you feel like for some reason you need to over-explain why this or why that, or why you need to take time for yourself or this or that, That tells you that, are these the best dynamics for you? Is this the best environment for you? You shouldn't have to be in a situation where if you say, I need to do this for me, it should be respected. You don't need to come up with an excuse of why you don't have to bend over backwards for someone, or why you don't have to give your emotional energy to a situation. A lot of times also in communication, especially if you prefer to communicate via text over talking, or sometimes when you're talking on the phone versus talking in person, there's going to be a different way that you can read something. And a lot of people now like to have difficult conversations via text message. I get it. It's how they feel safe, but a lot of things are misinterpreted. Those two people are going to have two different impressions of how that conversation went, because they are perceiving what the other person is writing in the way that they think. One person could say, hey, it's just tough for me to say this, to be honest, but I'm having a really difficult time. And that other person may have heard, hey, it's tough for me to say this, but I'm having a difficult time, like in a nagging kind of way. So it's better to have these conversations that you asked about in person, or have these conversations at least on the phone. But again, these are not the type of situations that you should be having all the time. This is a once in a while. Once a year, once every 2 years, with different people. If this is the same individual who continues to pop up, and you have to have a sit down whenever something is confusing, that should tell you something. The only, I think, exception would be if you are in a committed marriage and like you kind of have to do a lot of work. You said you agreed to do that when you married them. Do a lot of work. But even them, after years, if it's still the same thing, is this the person that you still want to be with? So it's learning how to be comfortable in yourself. And when you get comfortable in yourself, when you start to think in a very strategic way, when you just are at peace with your thoughts, you become so powerful, but also other people aren't going to know what to do with it. Sometimes the way that it happens is it's just like a light comes on, and people are still trying to deal with you in the way that they were dealing with you before, and you're just moving at a different energy, and they have no clue. They have no clue how to deal with it. Like the way that it's showing up for them is they will piece the story together however they want to. And you have to make peace with that. This whole opportunity is for you to get to a better place in your life. When I was talking earlier about deconstructing and tearing down the aspects that are no longer working for you in your life, it is you getting to a different place in your life and allowing the things around you to adjust. Sometimes in like a work environment, when it's just like people have those work identities and they really don't want to make any changes or make an effort, that's just the mask that they use. When you try to shift or make changes, sometimes it comes across as like they might be threatened, might try to come for your job or something like that. Don't worry about that. Or not even come for your job, but just make working stressful. Don't worry about that. Because over time, they're going to get exhausted. They have to do extra effort to get under your skin, to break your peace. So don't worry about that. Eventually, they will give up. They'll let it go. They'll find another victim. But are you stronger than them? That's what you got to ask yourself. Are you stronger with them? Are you able to look at this situation and be like, you aren't going to get me out of my personality? Because there's something about you that is super sweet. And sometimes people take kindness for weakness. And in this particular situation, that sweetness that you have, that sweetness that you embodied, can come across it to this person as well, they need to make me feel better. They need to make me feel better. But on your side, what you have to do is you have to decide who deserves to have that sweetness, who deserves in your everyday life to have the benefit of the doubt, who deserves to be surrounded by you, who deserves for you to share, the things that bring you joy. Who deserves that? And don't feel guilty about it. There's this sense of like, is it okay to just be yourself when someone else is telling you that yourself is not right, or something about you is not right? And mentally you're like, yeah, who cares? But emotionally, because you felt some type of way about it, it just comes up. Hey, look, that's just a part of life. That's just a part of the process of life. Things change, people change too, people outgrow each other. And it is okay if people outgrow each other and they give each other grace and peace so that they can enjoy their lives, and maybe they come back to each other and spend more time, especially when it comes to friendships, or maybe relatives or something like that, maybe even romance, the way that it happens in life. But people don't do that. They try to hold on to a situation, a circumstance so tightly that it suffocates it, that all the good memories then are lost. Like seeing that confusion that was there, all those good memories end up becoming lost, and then it becomes tainted by this other stuff that tends to pop up. But there's this strong calling for you as you're evolving, and that's actually what is being projected and shown. Just you're evolving and you're stepping forward, and you have to be okay with outgrowing a lot of people, situations, and circumstances. The situation might be you're too big for something and you need to think bigger. You are playing way too small. You do not need to play small like that anymore. Think bigger. It will support you. It will work out. You have the information, you have the protection, you have the luck to make it work out. You have the work ethic to make it work out. But once you grow bigger, you do have to make peace with, you will leave situations, circumstances, and people behind, because they're not willing to do that. They're not willing to grow in the way that you were asking. They're not willing to do the work. They're caught up on little stuff. The little stuff, like, what did you mean when you said and? That's crazy talk. Like, what are you talking about? Because that's what their life is consumed by. Versus you might be on another plane of like, hey, I'm actually interested in this or interested in that, or da 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 da. And sometimes these people show up too when you get a little bit more adventurous in life, and you're like, hey, I want to take up this thing or take up that thing, and they're just like kind of like a naysayer about it, or they'll be like, oh, that's cool, and you start doing it and they're like, oh, I guess, or they want to jump on and they want to do it, but they want to use you for motivation. Like, you have this thing, you're trying to motivate your own self to kind of keep it consistent, but then they want to control you, they want to control your energy, they want to feed off of that energy. And this typically happens for like a perpetual thing, that destruction that continued to come up. It typically happens over and over and over and over and over again by different people, because they see your light and they see how strong that light is, that light and that strength. So the way that you see and the way that you're experiencing yourself, those emotions that you have, is different than how people see you. People see you like they don't think, okay, let me, be on my A game around you. They think that they can just show up however that they want to show up because they see how strong you are. They're like, "Oh, you can take it. You're fine. You're good. Who cares? Like you're good. You'll help me." But then they're not actually ready to be helped, because when you want to help yourself, when you want to make a change, when you want to make movement in your life, you will figure it out, period. So no one can force you to want to be better, okay? But they just kind of want to bite on your energy. And you have to be clear, very clear, on who you allow to be around your energy. Also, there's this kind of momentum that's flowing, kind of like this new idea that came up before, and it will come to be. It will work out. And so you have to be very protective of that. Your time is very limited. So you don't have the flexibility to be weighed down by your fears as well. Sometimes these fears come from what we think. Other times it's the impressions when we look around and like, oh, is this a dumb thing to be doing? Or, you know, I don't want to make mistakes and look foolish and goofy or something like that. But when you're really by yourself, very quiet, okay? Not worried about making mistakes, because those same people who will laugh at something and be like, oh, I don't want to do this, they themselves wish that they had half of the courage, the energy, the motivation to be like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. That's coming to be for you. That is something that you'll be able to build on from that idea, but you can't let people get in your way. And for you, it's coming across as a very creative endeavor. So if there's something that you've been doing or thinking about in a very creative way, some people are very creative with their body. Some people are very creative with the materials, with the textiles of things. Some people like to creatively approach something. So it just depends on that, but you cannot let that fear and that doubt show up. And once you push past that, like we were talking about earlier, it can, if you want it, be an instant switch. It can if you want it, but you have to make peace with the fact that the situation or the people around you, they don't change instantly in the way that you do. They just won't. So while you're working at something, while you're enjoying the process of something, they may not see it that way. They may not respect your time. They may not respect your energy. They might think like, oh, that's good, but do you really need this? Do you really need that? There's a lot of time that you need just to think. Half the time when we're trying to do anything, there needs to be strategy. Because when you just mindlessly do something, you don't know what direction you're going in. Yes, when you know where you're going, yes, you can just do things, you get things like you have a routine. But when you're trying to figure it out, when you're exploring the way that you are, when you're opening yourself up to new experiences, even new people, that can be challenging for other people because it shows an openness in you, like we were talking about before, this openness of being able to say, okay, whatever life is throwing at me, whatever life shows up, whatever challenges that life presents, I'm going to be open to my next level, to getting to where I need to go. I see it as it is. Whether I'm motivated or whether I'm sad, life is going to have challenges. Whether I'm motivated, whether I'm sad, life is going to have triumphs. So I'm choosing in this moment to try to ground myself as best as I can and go forward. These other people are stuck in chaos. And it's going to be draining. It's hard to explain. And not everybody is bad. It's not like you're the only one who sees clearly and everyone is just like acting a fool. It's not that at all. It's just sometimes it can be slight too, and there can be a little bit of sensitivity about certain things. When I say slight, like you finally have the courage to open yourself in this kind of way. And other people are just like, who cares, whatever, not that big of a deal. And you're like, it is a big deal. And they're not. And you can't force them to think differently. And once you get there, they'll be like, oh, yeah, da 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 da. And then they want you to motivate them. But like really, during the in the past, they were kind of like a Debbie Downer when it came to the situation at hand that you talked about in the beginning. So a lot of those things are showing up here. And again, it's just this emotion. Don't fall victim to your emotions. It is not about being emotionless. It's not that at all. It's about being grounded, admitting to yourself, I'm afraid. Maybe you have a relationship that's going well, or maybe you desire a relationship to go well. Maybe you want to put yourself out there. Maybe you want to strengthen whatever that is. It's okay to say, I'm afraid of putting all my hopes in it. Maybe you're building towards something. You're expressing yourself in a new way. You're developing a new sense of yourself. And you're nervous to say, Hey, in the past, some things didn't work out and I'm nervous to do that. That's okay. That's normal. That's nothing's weird about that. That's okay. But stopping yourself saying it'll never work out for me, or when you date somebody, oh, I know that all people act this way, or all people that, putting yourself in a box when it comes to love, or when you're building something, oh yeah, if it doesn't go this perfect way, it's not meant to be. No, that's not true at all. Do not become shackled to your emotions. Your emotions will change from morning, noon to night. When we look at emotions, it is related to the moon in astrology. And the important thing about the moon, specifically how we deal with people, it is, the ruler of Cancer, how we deal with people. The one thing about the moon in comparison to all the other lights, planets, aspects, stuff like, is that it changes every 2 to 3 days. It changes signs. It takes much longer for Mercury to change. Takes much longer for Saturn, all the way out to Pluto and the sun and all the other planets. But the moon changes every 2.5 days because it is a metaphor, an analogy, a representation that our feelings change often. So when you are in your Leo energy, and then when you become in, your Scorpio energy, or then you're in your Pisces energy, you're going to feel differently about things. But in that moment, it feels like it's always going to be like this. But this too shall pass, okay? Be grounded in who you are and surround yourself by people who are grounded too. People who are easy to get along with. Love should be easy. It does not need to be perfect. Understand that. Love does not need to be perfect. And love being imperfect doesn't mean, oh, it's imperfect. This person is, taking you for granted and cheating on you and stuff. It doesn't need to be. No, I'm not talking about that. Love doesn't have to be perfect, meaning they don't need to be, clairvoyant. They specifically don't need to read your mind. They just need to communicate, be a decent human being. You communicate, be a decent human being, and you all work towards stronger and stronger partnership. That's what love is. The ability to be around someone that you can just be yourself with. Whether you're exciting, whether you're boring, okay? You don't have to put all of this extra energy on this situation. And it's similar when it comes to things that you are passionate about too. It doesn't have to work out perfectly. Like, oh, this has to happen and that has to happen and it has to align and that's how I know. Like, yeah, sometimes you feel that way when you realize that something is important to you, but it doesn't have to be like that. When it rains or when it shines, it is still meant to be if you want it to be. That's what that original energy was talking about. It is meant to be if you want it to be. That's up to you. That's how you show up. That's how you can get what you need from the situation and make peace. So the overwhelming message that came across is just feel comfortable in your skin. Nothing that shows up in your life is enough to knock you down and just say, just give up. Nothing. You survived it. You were able to thrive through what you were talking about, what you were asking about earlier. You survived it. You were able to thrive through it, and you were able to get to where you need to be. Now, don't be afraid to move on and to heal yourself emotionally. It'll take time. You have to face the discomfort, but there's something that you're building. There's something that you're growing. There's something that's getting to its next level because of this particular situation. And just to be open with yourself about that, just to be at peace with yourself about that, just to be patient with yourself about that is all that matters. Well, I will see you tomorrow.